here's Brody Brazil.
I wanted to present you with this checklist for interpreting the news here in 2020. You see, for decades, traditional mediums like television, newspapers, and radio, they were dominant, they were easily understood, and I'm definitely not here to say they were perfect, but at least they were predictable. Which is a sharp contrast to the last 10 years alone, which have shaped brand new ways of news cultivation, as well as news delivery to you, the listener, the viewer, or the reader. I think we can all understand, there is a huge difference of news interpretation that's necessary from watching a Walter Cronkite evening newscast to getting 10 different notifications on your phone per day about what's out there happening in the world. So yeah, you have to run yourself through a different checklist as you digest this news in 2020 versus 10, 20, 30, or 50 years ago. So let me start with this. Most people are probably getting a majority of their news these days via a social platform. But have you read actually more than just the tweet or the post about the news? Look, these captions in, sometimes 200 characters, these captions can be actually more misleading than the headlines of the articles themselves. And I'm not here to say that it's impossible to totally understand a news story from one tweet. Like, is it yes or no? That can be translated in a tweet, yes. But a lot of times you have to understand you're missing the entire story if you're not actually reading it. Some people only read the tweets. Some people only read the post on Facebook, and they think they're up to speed with the story. And let me remind you, news outlets will do anything to get you to click on that link. So of course it's going to catch your eye, and sometimes it might even exaggerate a little bit. So the next question I have is, did you actually read more than the headline? So you already clicked on this article. Now you're at it. Did you read more than just the headline? Did you read the context of the piece or just the headline itself? Again, headlines are not even written by the same author of the piece, most usually. And headlines are not always a summary of the entire article or the audio-visual content that goes with it. They are the appeal to read the rest of the story. And like I said, photos go along with this too, headlines. Sometimes photos are appealing, but a photo itself may not exactly tell the entire story. It is just the one that is most enticing for you to dive into. All right, so now once you've read the entire article, who is the outlet that's publishing this? Are there any reputational issues here? In 2020, let's be dead honest. Anybody can have a newsy-looking website. Anybody can call themselves a news organization. They can have a news division. It doesn't mean they're going to play it fair as a proper news outlet or organization. And we don't even keep track of credibility or accuracy of news outlets or organizations anywhere. We don't do it. There is no license to broadcast the news. And if you think about it, that's a pretty important responsibility. The freedom of press is one of the staples of our country. But again, anybody can do it, yet there's no way to accredit those who actually are doing it the right way. So the organization that you're getting your news from, does it have built-in biases? And are they extreme enough? Are they evident enough to sway the actual content that you might be consuming? All right, next question. Who is the actual reporter filing this story? And is this original reporting or is it aggregation? So do a little research on the byline. Who wrote this? What's their background? What's their experience? What's their body of work? Have they been doing this a long time? And I'm not going to knock down a 25-year-old who is a journalist, but there may be a difference between that and somebody who's been at their job for 25 years. Both can have their ups, both can have their downs. Again, I'm not saying one is always necessarily better than the other, but that's just something to take into account. Also, original reporting, like I mentioned, is unfortunately becoming a lot more rare, but it will always be the better option. Wouldn't you rather hear from somebody who was present for the story, who interviewed the sources themselves, who hopefully really has the best grasp on this because they were there. They might have even been an eyewitness to what happened. So you can ask yourself, does this reporter name these original sources? Or is the entire article according to somebody else, according to this story, according to that story? Because if you're seeing a lot of that, what it means is it's aggregation. Aggregation is a newer trend, and simply put, it's the piecing together of accounts of others to make your own story. Now, this is clearly more cost-effective, and sometimes it does give you a broader spectrum. It helps you navigate from several different sources to see a bigger picture, right? Like maybe you're kind of teaming up people in a way, but it can occasionally also lead to worse interpretation of the story. Again, if the reporter is not present, if they're not the one directly interpreting things, they may not exactly be translating them perfectly either. All right, next question. What is the accountability towards accuracy from the organization itself, the news organization? Like, if they get something wrong, will it even be acknowledged? Does it matter if they acknowledge it? Is it just here 2020 where people make mistakes and if we get it mostly right, that's good enough? Will their business take a hit if they are continually wrong? And will any of this actually deter them from making mistakes or putting out absurd news if they continue to do it? Will any of this stop them from what they've been doing if they're in fact getting it wrong? It's a question to ask yourself. Now, that may be a hard answer to realize, but I think at least here in 2020, the tools are out there to do a little research on who are you getting your news from. A couple more things here. Is this article more factual or opinion-based, and are you even able to determine? Now, I guess we could discuss here that we're mostly talking about news articles, something you might click on and read. But there's also a lot of content that people consume still on television or radio or a podcast or even audio-video content on their phone. Opinions in 2020 are more prevalent than ever, and they're more mixed with news than ever. In fact, many cable news networks, I know you think you're watching the news most often, but what you're actually watching are opinion-based shows that talk about the news. And that's a good thing. I like expanded conversation. I like knowing the story and then talking about it. I think you're reaching the next level of understanding the news when you not only get it, but you also get some conversation surrounding it. But to just understand that when you think you're watching the news, as you might have been in 1977, it's a little bit different here today in 2020. This is definitely acceptable that opinions and news are mixed, like I said, but can you understand, can you decipher the difference when it's a guest speaking with their opinion as opposed to somebody from the network who's actually delivering you the news and the facts to the best of their ability? So where does the news end and where does the opinion begin? And then last but not least, I think this is a most important one. I talk about news organizations being fair, and that is important. But honesty and fairness are different things. Are obvious falsities not questioned or countered with facts? The example here is this. If one person says it's raining and another person says it's not raining. And that's pretty much how the report leaves it. Well, person A says this, person B says this. That's the story. You're not actually doing the story. You're not actually performing journalism right there. It's your job to actually go out and figure out, is it raining or is it not raining? Now, sometimes it may be confusing. There might be drizzle. There might be mist. There might have been rain in one spot and not the other. It can be complicated. It can be very dynamic and complex. But that is the job of a journalist, to the best of their ability, to try and interpret and translate what exactly is the story. Not just they said. It's a matter of this is what we interpret. This is how we best interpret what happened. So does the report actually do the work of letting you know what actually happened, not just sharing two accounts and letting you, the person farthest away from all of this, make the ultimate decision of what you think happened? In closing, look, I graduated with a degree in broadcast journalism way back in 2004, and I have to be honest, for all the things that I learned back then, and realistically that I don't necessarily use in my sports broadcasting career, for all the things I learned back then, I am honestly not sure if more things are still in use or more things have dramatically and drastically changed away. I think more has changed since 2004 in journalism than it has actually stayed the same. But I think none of the foundational pieces that I've talked about here are different at all. It's just that the responsibility of doing a little work now relies on the consumer instead of the broadcaster or news producer.